I have two phones that I find very interesting because they have a lot of the same specifications, but for two very different price points. So we have the Honor 5X and we have the Huawei GX8. This is a $200 phone and this is a $350 phone with a lot of the same specifications. Of course, there are some differences, but I want to talk about them, review them together. They are similar enough phones to where I feel that I can review them together. Hopefully I can help you decide which one of these that you would like to go for. The first thing you're going to notice is that both of these have different branding, even though they do look kind of similar. This is the Honor brand and this is Huawei brand. Huawei owns Honor entirely, so Honor is a subset of Huawei. And the idea is that Huawei is able to sell their phones through Honor at a lower price point so that people can get these into their hands at that lower price point. They cut out the middleman. There is no brick and mortar store. You can only purchase these online. So you can get this one already from Amazon or from Honor. And the GX8 is going to be available at Best Buy. There is your brick and mortar store starting the 17th. That's the 17th of March. So $200 phone, $350 phone. Being sold as an entry-level phone, this is being sold as a mid-tier phone. What is it that you get for the extra 150 bucks? That's the first thing that I want to talk about. And then I want to get more in depth and review these phones. I will mostly be focusing on the GX8 because these are so similar. So what is different between these? Well, on the camera you have optical image stabilization on the GX8. You have a nicer build design on the GX8. And then you have Gorilla Glass on the front. So Gorilla Glass 4, this also has an oleophobic coating as well, so really helps with fingerprints, where the Honor 5X does not. They do have a screen protector that comes pre-installed, although I took it off for the sake of this video. So fingerprints stick more easily. They're not as easy to wipe off as what we have on the GX8. And this is some type of tempered glass. I can't say whether this is Gorilla Glass or not. They don't say. This is a flat type of glass, where this one has that nice rounded bit to it. The glass on the GX8 really does feel much nicer. Other than that, I really don't see any differences. You've got your fingerprint sensor in the same spot. You have a 3000 milliamp hour battery inside of both of these. You have a 13 megapixel camera on both of these. I think it's the same sensor. So the big thing here is that this is being sold through Honor, and because of that, they can sell this at a cheaper price. But still, there are things about the GX8 that does make it worth going up that extra step. Whether you would like to prefer to purchase this over another phone within the same price range, that's going to be entirely up to you. But I prefer the GX8 just because it feels much nicer, and the optical image stabilization does make a pretty big difference in reality, and that's what I'm going to be showing you a little bit later when we get into the more in-depth part of this review. So we can take a look around these devices just to get a look at the build and the design. So the GX8 has that nice unibody aluminum. It's got a matte finish to it. I think it looks really quite nice. Then you have the Honor 5X, which is also aluminum. I can't say whether this is the same grade of aluminum, but it doesn't feel as premium. It's got this brushed type of look to it. Both of these have these plastic parts on the top and the bottom. This is so that you get antenna reception. You can't have all metal phones and expect to get antenna reception. You can see that we have a dual tone LED flash here on the GX8, and this is just a single LED flash, just monotone. So this looks really, really nice on the GX8. You've got that nice chamfered edge all along the side here. The display is seated really nicely. Where on the 5X, you can see that the display is screwed here. It's got this plastic bit that sits here, and then it's screwed on the bottom. And it looks okay, it looks nice enough, but it certainly doesn't have the design effect of the GX8. If you look at the right-hand side, you have your volume rockers and your power buttons in the exact same place. You have this nice bit of texturing on the GX8. You do too on the 5X, it's just a little different. Then on the bottom we have our micro USB charging port, and we have a speaker and a microphone. I'm not sure which one is the speaker or the microphone. I'm sure I will put an annotation to note that. It's not dual speaker. It just ends up looking nice to have them both uniform like this. Then on the left-hand side, this is where it gets interesting. We have a SIM card slot, and this actually is a SIM card slot that can take 2 nano SIMs, or it can take a nano SIM and an SD card slot. Where this one, you can take 2 nano SIMs. Excuse me, I meant to say that the 5X has a micro SIM and a nano SIM, not 2 nano SIMs. And you can also add an SD card slot, so you can have all 3 of those at the same time, or this one you have to do either or. I'm curious as to why this feature is not on the GX8, the more expensive phone. On the front, they both have a 5.5-inch 1080p display, IPS display. These are not the same display. I did some measurements and I was able to find that essentially this is a wider gamut display. Both of these have very bluish looking displays. We'll get into that a little bit later. So don't expect color accuracy on either of these guys. But hey, there's a $350 phone and a $200 phone, respectively. Then we also have our receiver, ambient light sensor, and proximity sensor, and both of these have a 5 megapixel camera on the front. Now their interfaces are really very similar. You can see just going inside of these, go to About Phone. You can see that both of these run EMUI 3.1. I find that this has some additional fingerprint sensor capabilities that this one does not. I don't know why the GX8 doesn't have some of those fingerprint abilities. Both of these have 2 gigabytes of RAM. Both of these have 16 gigabytes of internal storage. Both of these have the exact same SoC. Also, both of these have a 3000 milliamp hour battery inside of them. So we have the Snapdragon 616 SoC inside of both of these guys. So very much the same phone. Now, when it comes to the fingerprint sensor functions, both of these fingerprint sensors work very, very well. You can see just touching on the back for both of them, they're both on. There are some added features that we have here that you don't see on the GX8. I'm not sure why that is. So you have touch control click and touch control. So we have back where this one does not. So you can see it says press the fingerprint sensor to go back to your previous action. You also have back to home. So if you press and hold on this fingerprint sensor, it's going to take you to the home screen, which I find to be really nice. I love that shortcut. I really wish we had that on the GX8. Both can take a photo and also can take video if you touch and hold on the fingerprint sensor when underneath the camera application. Both can answer a call, both can stop an alarm. Also, if you swipe upward on the 5X, no matter where you are, it's going to bring you into your recent applications. It does not work the same way on the GX8. But where both of them are similar though is if you scroll downward like this, you can see that you get to your notifications and your shortcuts. So that works the same way on both of them. And then on both of these, if you double touch, it's going to clear those notifications for you. So considering that these are both EMUI 3.1, I don't know why the GX8 doesn't have these features. I can only hope that in a future update we will get those features, or maybe they're an exclusive to the 5X. Now also, both of these have theming options, full theming options that work essentially the same way. You have more options here underneath the GX8. I don't see a theme store, though oddly, maybe I'm missing something. You can also customize the various theming options on both of these. Interface-wise, neither of these has an app drawer, so that is the EMUI. It looks very much iPhone-esque. Of course, you are free to use folders like you would on the iPhone, and of course, if you don't like this, you can put a different launcher on it, no problem there. You can swipe up from the bottom on both of them and access some shortcuts. Both of these have the phone manager, which I have come to really, really like. Some really nice features that Huawei adds on top of Lollipop. This is Lollipop, by the way, it's not Marshmallow. I hope that this has a Marshmallow update sometime in the near future, because it would be really nice to have the adaptable storage, so it feels like you have more internal storage on this, because it's only 16 gigabytes for both of these. So you essentially here can scan your phone to get it to work in a more optimized way, helps with battery life, cleans out your storage, gets rid of applications that it senses are making the phone run more slowly, power saving, On both of these, you can choose between the Ultra, Smart, or Normal. I would prefer to keep it on the normal mode for gaming and videos, or if you're going to be doing more intense tasks. This really takes a look at your consumption level and what is power intensive. So if it sees something that's power intensive, you can decide to close them. And here is a full breakdown of your consumption level between hardware and software. So hardware, of course, will be the screen. Then for software, we can see what is the heaviest hitter as well. That would be Gmail. So this is a setting that I have really liked. So you can just scan the entire thing. It's going to run some optimizations for me. Just overall, I think that it helps make the phone run a bit more smoothly and helps to optimize the battery. So very cool, Huawei. That is a feature that I have come to really love. Now, speaking of battery life, I mentioned that both of these have a 3000 milliamp hour battery inside of them, and both of them get really great battery life. I'm able to get 5 hours of on-screen time, no problem. That's even when on the normal mode. And it lasts me a full 24 hours almost, so very happy with this. Now, given this isn't the most powerful phone, but it does have a nice sizable battery inside of this, and it will certainly last you through the day or 2 days. I had no trouble whatsoever. Really liked that. On both of these guys, you've got other various cool features, such as being able to double tap on the volume button and it's going to open up the camera quickly for you. You can enable Ultra Snapshot, which is allowing you to not only execute the camera but snap a picture all at the same time very quickly. Or you can disable that and simply have it execute the camera application. That's nice. It reminds me very much of the Nexus 6P, also by Huawei. You can open up various applications by drawing on the screen. So here is a W. That opens up weather. You can program whatever application you want it to. You put an E. It opens up the web browser. So A+ for the cool features that have been packed into this on top of Lollipop. Now, I've been testing both of these devices side by side, and I can see that they're pretty much smack dab the same in terms of performance. They've got the same SoC inside of this. So this is the Snapdragon 616. Now we have 3 devices here running Geekbench 3. This is the Huawei Nexus 6P. You can see how similarly the GX8 and the 5X perform. CPU-wise, very much the same. But comparatively to something like the Nexus 6P with a Snapdragon 810 SoC inside of it, you can see that it's of course it's not performing as good, as more cream of the crop. Going around the interface on both of these phones, I do notice a little bit of stutter, a little bit of lag here and there. They're not the most smooth performing phones. Sometimes they run pretty smoothly, and other times I notice that they do have a few hiccups here and there. So that's where I really can tell that these are not top quality phones. The GX8 more so kind of creates a little bit of a disparity there, because this really looks like a nicer phone, but under the hood, performance-wise, just going around the interface and when opening up applications, you can feel that this is not the most powerful of phones. But it's good enough, certainly. Certainly it's good enough. Now, looking graphics-wise comparatively to the Nexus 6P, this is GFX benchmark. You can see for the on-screen, you're getting 5.9 frames per second versus 15. For the off-screen, 5.6 versus 23 frames per second. You've got for T-Rex 15 frames per second versus 38, and also 14 versus 48, so this is much more powerful. Game-wise, the performance has been okay, just as with many Android games. These devices are more than powerful enough to play these Android games. I was able to play Asphalt 8 for a half hour without any trouble whatsoever. The device really didn't get that hot either. Neither did the 5X for that matter. Of course, frame rates aren't the absolute most smooth, and I'm not expecting that, but it can run games really just fine, no complaints whatsoever. Now, taking a look at the displays side by side, both of these have a 5.5-inch 1080p IPS display. As I mentioned earlier, the GX8 has a wider gamut than the Honor 5X. So this is showing a wider range of colors than the 5X is, although the 5X I see a lot of oversaturation, such as in the cyans, the blues, the magentas, the greens most certainly. So both of these make images look more saturated than they should be. Also, both of these have quite a cool white points. The whites look on the bluish side, really quite bluish. Please don't expect any type of color accuracy for either of these. The display on the Honor 5X is brighter. It's about 100 nits or so brighter than the GX8 is. I think it's somewhere in the 500 nits, where this is somewhere in the 400 nits. The contrast ratio is better, a little bit better on the GX8 though. These displays are just okay displays. Coolish tone to both of them and oversaturated colors, weird processing with the colors. Now connectivity wise for both of these make good phones. I think call quality has sounded pretty alright. I am bummed that this only has the 2.4 gigahertz band for Wi-Fi, no 5 gigahertz band. That's something that's actually kind of irking me. Also, we don't have a gyroscope in this, so keep that in mind. You have an accelerometer, but no gyroscope. We also don't have NFC either, so you're not going to be using Android Pay with these phones. If you wanted to know very briefly about the speaker between the two on the bottom of these, I feel that the speaker quality is a little bit better on the GX8. It doesn't sound as tinny. Now the last thing that I want to talk about in this review / comparison are the cameras, the 13 megapixel cameras, also the 5 megapixel cameras on the front. Now it's really nice that the GX8 has optical image stabilization, especially even at this price point. And it does help it quite a bit over the Honor 5X. So if you are counting on pictures alone, it may be worth the extra $150 to get the GX8 if you are so inclined to stick with the Huawei brand of phones. So I'm going to show some samples, but certainly optical image stabilization helps this. One thing that I notice immediately though for both of these phones is that they do not have continuous autofocus. I figured, okay, fine. The $200 phone, maybe there's a reason for that. It's a cheaper phone, entry level, doesn't have continuous autofocus. Okay, I can live with that. But this is optical image stabilization, but no continuous autofocus in video? That's weird. So you can touch to focus, of course, but go as close as you want. And I noticed this during recording out and about, unfortunately, on some of my video samples, that it just won't focus. And there's no option anywhere in all of the menus for this, so it simply does not have continuous autofocus. There it is. So that's weird, that's a bummer. Now for what it is, I feel like this is a pretty full-featured camera. You can switch to your 5 megapixel front-facing camera. Here is the control for the flash. Here we have some options. You have HDR, best photo, audio note. I haven't used that yet. After you take a photo, you can record up to 10 seconds of audio. Then you have panorama, all focus, which was really quite strange. With all focus, it allows you to change the focus of the image after you've already taken the photo, and I found it to not really work very well at all. You can see underneath your gallery, it gives you this little icon, so you know that this is one of those readjusting focus type things. So you can see I'm touching, and it's refocusing. But it's not focusing on the thing that I was trying to focus on initially, which was this little flower. So that kind of defeats the purpose. I don't know, I would have to play around with this more, but I really wasn't so convinced. Then you can save the new focus that you've chosen. Then under settings, you have several options. So you can choose your resolution. 13 megapixel, 10 megapixel, you can choose between different aspects, optical image stabilization. Object tracking, you can touch the object you want to focus on. The camera will then track and focus on that object. Didn't find that it worked that well. Then you've got advanced settings. You can adjust ISO, white balance, image adjustment, so exposure, saturation, contrast, brightness. Restore defaults. There's a lot of things in here. Then you've got some various modes on the side. Good food, beauty, photo, video, time-lapse. And of course, with the video, you have some extra settings as well. You can choose Full HD 1080p for the resolution, 720p, VGA, and so on and so forth. Then of course you can switch to the front, and you have another setting called makeup, and you can create all kinds. Now in terms of photo quality, I really only got to test out the GX8, but both of these have the same camera except for the optical image stabilization. Out in daylight, these should be performing about the same, but in indoor scenarios is where this really does a lot better, having the optical image stabilization. In terms of photo quality, a lot of the times I find that the photos are natural, but then other times I find the images end up looking like they have way too much contrast added to them. So again, I think it's just kind of give or take, but I think that there's plenty of detail in the images. I've overall been pretty happy with these as a camera, just as for point and shoot. Been able to take some nice close-up photos, get a nice blurred background. But where I'm really not happy though is with video recording. Video recording really leaves much to be desired. Videos end up having way too much contrast, don't look good at all, and having the lack of continuous autofocus just kind of spoils the whole experience. So it's nice to have optical image stabilization, but what's the point if it's not also allowing you to focus and use it as a video camera? So results have been kind of give or take. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. It does okay in low lighting, not too bad. An indoor restaurant type low lighting, I still see a nice bit of detail. But really low lighting is where it's going to struggle. I really didn't expect it to do very well anyway. But even there, optical image stabilization isn't going to help it. So overall, both of these are really nice little phones. 350 bucks, 200 bucks. The only thing that really has me jumping between the 5X to the GX8 is that optical image stabilization. Otherwise, yeah, you know, body build is nice. I do prefer the build on this one, indeed, but it's not going to make me jump up $150 to have, I don't think. Plus, I like how I have 2 SIM card slots and an SD card slot on this. So you guys are gonna have to let me know what you think about both of these phones, which one you would go for specifically. And it's interesting that the 5X has some extra features for the fingerprint sensor for the interface that the GX8 does not. So let me know what you guys think. This has been Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. As a side note, I am giving this away as continuing my giveaway series, so please stay tuned for this giveaway. I will make a video for that in the very near future. So again, let me know what you guys think and have a good night.